Hello everyone and welcome to show 57 of the Ammach Files. Now I do have to tell you, it's probably the same way you are, but we've had days of rain and really heavy winds. It's horrible. I don't look in the upstairs room to see if there's another wet patch from the ceiling. So anyway, we are the Ammach Files. We are on People's Internet Radio and it is a tad after 11, so about 6 minutes past. So welcome to, and it is Tuesday and it is the 17th of November 2015. Now, before I go on to who's on the show this evening, and I'm really excited to share that with you in a moment, I just want to flag up something that happened this week. Now, I had a guest that was due to appear on the December the 1st slot, Tuesday. And then on the 13th, which we know was the day of the Paris event, which I'm going to say has all the hallmarks of another false flag. Not that I'm going to go into that just now, but I had a call with this guest, our guest to be. And I'm just going to read what it was, that the notes I took that they said. So on that day, they reported that they were leaving their home. They're about halfway to where they normally go, whatever that journey was from their home. And this is in the East Midlands of the UK. When suddenly he was approached by two strangers. And it took him a bit by surprise because they suddenly approached him talking about the broadcast. The broadcast to come. My name was mentioned and so was Ammach. And they then intimated and certainly insinuated that it would be better for his health if he didn't do the show. Now, I know that also my guest has also experienced and probably still has ongoing experiences of surveillance, harassment, and all the rest of it. Now, it's not that we want to get stuck on all of that, but we have to acknowledge what goes on and how difficult this field can be for those of us trying to punch a hole through the envelope. And you know, this is quite serious. So my guest then said, whilst he has family, grown family, he didn't feel that he could really and honestly come on the show. So, you know, this is really quite serious. And he was really taken aback. He was really quite shocked. And then when I asked him if they were human, if he thought they were human, he said, oh, yes, yes. And then he said, maybe not. He said, actually, when I think about it, he said, as I watched them go, because this interaction also took all of about 30 seconds, so he didn't get a chance to quiz them back or ask any details. They just gave what they had to deliver, which was spoken by one of them, and then they left. And he said, as they left, they did have quite a strange gait. So it is not the first time that I've heard of people who are beings who have taken on the human form or casing for a time to deliver a message who aren't quite used to its maneuvers or mechanics, and that causes a very strange gait. So it seems that they probably were not human. And when I told a friend of mine who is ex-security forces, etc., he was quite concerned and said, if this was done by humans, I would tell you to desist and stop instantly. But as it was non-humans, I'm really not so worried. So that's interesting. So if all continues on the 1st of December, I will be broadcasting what I can of his story. It's never the same when it's reported, but I will do that unless I am stopped doing that. Anyway, I don't want to stay on that point for too long, but it's just to again flag up for those who don't think this area or field is important at all, just how important it is to the powers that be, or were, whatever you want to call these folks, who have a vested interest in the bulk of humanity not waking up and realizing their own divine sovereignty and potential. So, folks, onward and upward. Now, we're going to play a song. It's the UFO song, and I forgot to do my homework and look up the year. So we're going to play that for you, and then I'm going to bring on my very special guest, and that is James Gilliland, and you may have heard of him and his ranch, the ET Ranch, and we'll talk about that after the song. So here we go. It's the UFO song on a very wet and windy southeast of England. See you after then. Okay, sorry about that, everyone. Whether it's what I was telling you about or whether it is in fact because of the weather, we won't know. So let me introduce you to James and give you a little bio. So James Gilliland, for those of you who do not know who he is is a best-selling author. He's an internationally known lecturer, minister, counselor, and multiple near-death experiencer and contactee. He's a facilitator of many Eastern disciplines, a visionary dedicated to the awakening and healing of humanity, and the Earth, who teaches higher dimensional realities from experience. He is recognized worldwide as the founder of the Gilliland Estate, commonly known as the ET Ranch, and that stands for Enlightened Contact with Extraterrestrial Intelligence, where he documents and shares amazing multidimensional contact phenomenon, and that can all be viewed on the website www.eseti.org. His unique focus on dispelling the myths propagated by the disinformation system makes him an in-demand speaker at such as international UFO congresses, knowledge conferences, and contact in the desert. Now, I do know that James is also off around the world to do a huge, now he's got several books, Reunion with Source, journey. So we will have a talk about all of those in due course. So first of all, welcome to the Ammach Files, James.
Oh, thank you for having me on the show.
We're losing her already.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put that song back on again, James, and let's see about, try this again.
I can monologue it if you need to.
No, we'll just be a minute or so, I think.
Oh dear, I'm sorry, folks. I'm not going to be how it's going to be for the entire time. But anyways, well, beginning with about your early life and some of those NDE experiences, and I think that would be a perfect place to start. So tell us about the early days of, perhaps before we start that, let's hear about that childhood event or those events.
All right.
We lost James again?
Yeah, no, you're breaking up. I could hear kind of what you're saying. I'll kind of intuitively go by what I think you asked. But I guess the childhood events.
Oh.
Talk about the childhood experiences first.
Yeah. Yes,
All
I think so. I always find it interesting to start from the get-go and, you know, your time on this planet and how that panned out.
Great. Well, I had a lot of experiences as a child. I had, at the age of 5, I had bronchopneumonia, and I was actually in the hospital, and they kept telling my parents that they didn't think I'd make it through the night.
Oh, right.
Several times. And I had a being appeared to me, and she was all dressed in blue, and she used to stroke my forehead and talk to me and kind of pull me through it. And it happened several times. And then the last time, she actually gave me a substance to eat. It was like the consistency of ice cream, but it wasn't cold. You know, it was like a white, creamy kind of. And I ate that, and then I got well almost immediately, and then I didn't miss a day of school after that. And so that was my first kind of paranormal experience, I'd have to say. I mean, I had some other things happen, but that was a really one of the big events.
Yeah, that was a enormous. Did she share anything of herself or who she was, or was it somebody that you perhaps felt you might have recognized from dreams, or was this a brand new person for you?
At 5 years old, I had no idea who she was, but I just felt this pure love and joy and nurturing energy from her, and she was always wearing blue, and I kept asking for the woman in blue, you know, when she was going to come back. And they told me basically you're delusional or whatever. There is no. They all wore green, you know. They wore green. The nurses all wore green, and I was like in intensive care and everything. And there wasn't anybody, you know, supposedly there dressed in blue. And so I found out later on, you know, and in a little disclaimer there, I'm not Catholic, but it turned out to be Mary. It turned out to be Mother Mary.
Oh, really?
And, yeah, and she's a universal being. She's not here just for the church, you know. She's here for anybody, but she's very involved in the children and kind of keeping things going. And then as a child, I remember being taken from my room. We lived in the high desert where there was a lot of activity. And I remember being taken up several times. And I was okay with it. At first, it kind of freaked me out. And I tried to talk to my parents about it, and they just wouldn't hear it. You know, it was a bad dream. Just, you know, forget about it.
Oh, so what sort of age would you have been there, James, then on that one? Sorry, did I miss that?
Yeah, I was about probably between 7 and 9.
Oh, okay.
When that happened. But it wasn't negative. I just was trying to understand it. It was more of a positive experience. And then later I found out there was a lot of kind of genetic tampering, you know, with my family and things like that. And so our whole family is very different. You know, we all have gifts, and we're all, especially my nieces and nephews are just brilliant and, you know, geniuses, and they're working on the genome experiments and things like that. You know, and they're already MDs and naturopaths and, you know, and things like that. So it's you know, it's just, there's been a lot of upgrading, you might say, within our family line.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's so common that you hear about it, isn't it? The intergenerational side of things. So when your mum and dad didn't kind of, you know, go with what you were experiencing or support you in that, did they later on have experiences of their own that helped them with that, or was that never part of their experience?
Well, my dad lived in New Mexico, and so he was involved with that whole Roswell thing. And,
really?
Yeah, he was a dentist. He wasn't even 21 years old, and he already, you know, was a dentist. He'd already graduated dental school and everything else. But my grandmother was very involved in that, and my grandfather owned the hardware store, and he sold a lot of the materials to the, I think it's Frazzle.
Frazzle.
Yeah. And I think it's a Swenson Ranch or something like that. But the first responders, the sheriffs, came to my grandmother and started talking to her about it. And she was like the matriarch. She was the school teacher, you know, of the town there. And you know, she was talking to them, and she said, you know, she said these were good old boys, you know, honest as this day is long. She said, salt of the earth. And she said they couldn't even hold a coffee cup. They were still shaking, and they were still white from the experience, and it just turned them upside down. She said, I believe them, you know, and her name was Elizabeth, you know, and they said, Elizabeth, we're not alone, you know. Yeah. And they said they are told they could not talk about it. They said, all we can tell you is we're not alone, and there was an incident, you know, but they said we can't really talk about it. And then they told her some things, you know, but they just said, you know, she said there was an incident basically, but they didn't say too much. I don't know what scared them worse, seeing the ETs and the little bodies, or the guys that showed up later and put the wrath of God into them, you know, if they were to talk.
Yeah, that's quite well documented, of course, these days. Yeah. But I mean, that would have been extremely scary to go through, because I mean, there was just nothing really like that, and no experience of people having the heavy hand of the military, you know, threatening them with disappearing in the desert should they speak about such a thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's still going.
I mean, they did do that. They dealt with it very heavy-handedly. But
yeah.
My dad's always been really open-minded. He was like a walking Buddha, you know, the way he lived his life and everything. And you know, every once in a while he would stop, pull over, and he said, tell us to get out of the car, and we get out of the car, and he'd say, look up, and there'd be like 3 or 4 ships flying, you know, right over the car, and we're just little kids at the time. And he said, do you see that? We you know, what do you see? And I go, stars. And he goes, it's daytime and they're moving. You know, he'd like explain it to us. You know, we're just like, you know, little kids at the time.
Yeah, and so did you think that was fun? Did he tell you? Did he have much experience about, you know, or any interaction? Who was flying them, or? No,
he didn't talk much about it. He kind of just, you know, at the time he was a dentist, you know, and he was very well respected, and he had like #1 membership at the golf course, you know. And he was like a scratch golfer too, a very good golfer, but he just didn't, you know, want to mess up his, I think, his position, you might say, in society there.
Absolutely, we all know about that scenario too well, and it's quite understandable. I don't hold anything against anybody having, to stay the course in that regard. It's a tough one. It's a tough road.
Well, it's like my grandmother. My grandmother was Cherokee, and so my mom didn't want to talk about that at all. So we didn't even know that for quite a long time until we started looking at the pictures, on the family records and everything, and then found out my grandmother and great grandmother were Cherokee, so that's kind of interesting. But we're kind of we're the Cherokee Scotch Irish mix, so we're that mix that all the alphabet agencies are looking for, because we're supposed to have gifts.
Yeah, you tick all the boxes, James.
Yeah.
I won't bother sending out the survey then, we all know already.
Yeah, I just hit all the boxes.
Yeah, absolutely. So, James, so you've had a few near-death experiences. I know they've had a profound impact. Of course, any near-death experience would. Of course, that goes without saying.
Yeah.
Well, let's go on to any others that you think have had an impact, where there have been any others involved, if there are any, indeed.
Well, yeah, I had. We had quite a few just flyovers constantly, they were flying over the ranch here. And at one time I got so bored with it, I said, come on, you guys, what's this about? I need to know. And, at one point in time I go, I don't even care if it kills me. I want to know why are you, what is my connection is? Why do you keep flying over the ranch here? And I didn't fully understand, what it was about at the time. And then so they, so the next thing you know, I was actually in the bathtub and I was meditating and I was talking to him telepathically. And this beam of light came right through the wall and hit me in the chest. Wow. And then 3 gold balls came down the beam, one after another, and hit me in the chest. And the next thing you know, I was pulled right out of my body and I was on a ship. But that ship was it was a 6-dimensional ship. It was a plasma ship. It was just pure energy. And that was one of the more intense experiences. And I ran into a woman by the name of Malia, who was with the Orion Council of Light, their initiators, and I asked her what the gold balls were, and she said that your memories have been restored, and and she said that it was part of the initiation. And then I asked her, why she had a headdress on, it looked like a bathing cap with gold bars over the top, and I asked her what the headdress was about, and she said it was a spiritual form of technology they used to initiate people. And then I started asking her some more questions, but she told me I had to leave because she said if I stayed, it would change my frequency too much, and it would be harder to adapt, to readjust to Earth, So she told me I need to go back, and she said everything you need, you have everything you need, your memories have been restored. And so after that, I just had these snippets of one life after another, and I was viewing them, and it would just be a short snippet, but I get the whole emotional charge out of it and the memory of who I was in that lifetime, and what I was doing. And some of those included off-world lives as well, and I would just be viewing myself and what I was doing in that lifetime.
And did you see the link of all the experiences to this life, the common thread that's led you to where you are now? And if, that I find that absolutely fascinating, because I've had some memory of my own past lives, and you see the link, you see the growing tether, and the build of information bringing you to where you are now. And I wonder if you did.
Yeah, I did. What was interesting, I've done everything. I was a Viking warrior and I hacked off heads in one lifetime. Oh. And I was a road bandit and a cripple in England, but I was also a king in England and a prince. I died young in the prince lifetime, but we've done everything. I think one of the reasons why they showed me all these different lives, to show me that I've done everything, and so it's like you kind of master judgment, and you have a greater understanding of the beggar or the thief or the warrior, what created that, what made them that way, and things like that. So it was good. And I had a lot of lifetimes as lamas and yogis and things as well. So it was a pretty rounded experience when they started showing me all these different lifetimes.
Yeah. So, James, what sort of age were you when that happened?
That was about, I
mean, more or less. It's just interesting.
30, in my mid-30s, maybe, early
Yeah.
30s.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, can you? I want to talk about the ranch in a moment, but just as you've touched on a six-dimensional ship and the beings there, maybe you can just run us past. A lot of people won't understand or have much knowledge of a six-dimensional ship and who would be piloting that. Perhaps we can talk a little about that.
Well, the best way to understand it is there's a vibrational continuum. And we're multidimensional beings, and we exist on this vibrational continuum. So although we have a body and a personality, I call it our meat sack, there's much more to us than that we're actually a spirit that has many dimensions to it, not just one. And so when you get past the body and the personality self, and you start realizing that you're a spirit and that you have experiences all the way back to the source, and that there's many worlds all going on at the same time. It's kind of mind-blowing. It's really hard for somebody to handle, because you have to lose your identity. You go through an identity crisis eventually when this happens. And I had beings coming to me, and they would say, my soul appeared to me, and on that level, and it was this huge Viking warrior, and freaked me out. He's telling me I'm your soul, I'm your expression on a soul level. And then I had a being that was wearing robes named Tasamara, and he goes, I'm your Christ self, and so I'm going, wait a second, this guy's saying he's me, and this other guy's saying he's me, and then Ezekiel shows up, and he's this big golden light being, with long golden hair and golden beard, and he's telling me, you are my hands and feet, on the earth. And so and that's on a God self level. It's a seventh dimensional energy, but we're existing, like all these lives are going on at once, and it's hard for us to understand that until we let go of the identity, because we're trying to say, who am I? And we're trying to put ourselves in a point in time, in a physical body at a reference point, and really you're not that. That's just a small fraction of who you are, that we're these vast interdimensional beings. And the more you understand that, the more you can grasp what's really happening on the planet. Because it's sad, because a lot of the ufologists are all nuts and bolters. They're looking for a metal craft and some technology, and still trying to prove that they exist, and things like that. And we're actually, we know who they are. We know the different types of ships they're flying, who's on the ships, and their culture. We've gone so far beyond that. And but to me, it's like they'll come up and they'll demand proof. They'll say, oh, I have a PhD, and I want proof that this is real. I want some physical evidence. And I just said, well, if you have a PhD, then you understand that there's at least 11 dimensions, and look at all the life on this dimension. The other dimension is even bigger, and as for you to demand, physical proof on non-physical events doesn't even fit with your own science, your own reality. So so it's kind of like, they have a PhD, and I go, really? Do they teach UFO at Harvard, or wherever? I guess John Mack was opening those doors, but they don't teach these people anything. Ask them, have you ever had an experience? No. Have you ever seen a UFO? No. And I said, well, then it's time to talk to those that have. If you really want to, you're out of your element here. So, they'll come up and they'll make demands, and a lot of times I'll just tell them, look, I hate to burst your bubble, but you have absolutely no authority in my life, and I don't need your acceptance and approval. So once we can get that out of the way, we can have a conversation.
It's so true. It is absolutely true. And a lot of the people I'm speaking to are clearly coming through now with these way other dimensional levels. And I had one guy telling me recently, and I wonder if you have any experience of this, James, of he was taken into, it's like a void, and I can't I can't think of the name, but if I go to support him in the near future, then I will look that up and give that to everybody. But it's basically the I am. He said it was a little bit. It had the look of a black hole, but he said it was absolute pure love, and he said it was as if that was where everything generated from. But that was his experience, and I wondered if you'd come across anything similar.
Yeah, exactly. When you get to the void, I was there, I was at the void, and it's like where all things, the potential of all things is there, it exists. And then just past that, what I saw was as you move down in frequency were the first polarities, and there was just giant columns of light spheres and spheres that were dark, both dark and light. And it was the first separation, you might say the first separation of energies, because you have to have polarity to create, you know, the other dimensions. And then on the seventh level was the plane of bliss, where there's just these golden light beings that there's, you know, a lot of different beings there, but most of them had magnetized light bodies, and you know, they had their light ships. And as you move down, there's some beings there's pure energy beings, and they have ships that are made out of pure energy. And then you have physical craft, you know, they might be less dense physical than us, but they have their craft, you know, and their metal and their nuts and bolts and things like that. But even those craft can power up and turn into a light principle. That's how they fly. They actually become non-physical when they fly. Yes,
and again, it's very very much that it's the biotechnology element, which is a lot of times why we can't read the energy of it. Though I must say, I've talked on this program before, and I've done workshops with and told people about that, which is with the forensic dowsing team called Biolocation Team, and they're doing some extraordinary work on using vibration, frequency, color, and numbers to a greater extent. I'm just trying to think of the whole rote of things that they use. And they're getting a tremendous amount of information about these different craft. And also, interestingly, about the wars that seem to be occurring right above us, high up. So I don't know if you know much or have any input about that, James. Not that I want to stick on wars, but it's just something that they have observed. And I just wondered if you had.
Well, actually, I've been right in the middle of that, you know. So,
okay.
Yeah, we've had throughout my life, I've had crazy encounters like that. But we've been having a lot of problems, you know, with some greys and reptilians and some of these serpent beings that are really nasty, and the archons, you know, the archon network, you might say, and it's a draconian, you know, way of life, you know. And unfortunately, we've been under draconian law for a long time here, and that's what we're breaking out of right now. And it's this old separation game and a hierarchical power structure, which we've evolved beyond that. It doesn't work. It never has worked, and it's a very suppressive program. And so there are wars, interdimensional wars going on. There's a huge cleanup process underway. And a lot of the gray reptilian, the negative grays, you might say, and the reptilian energies are being removed, and it's been quite a process, but we're coming up to the tail end of it right now.
Yeah, someone was somebody who I've been in contact with, who's special forces or has been in special forces, was telling me that the Anunnaki returned in 2009 and showed me a photograph of somebody at actually a UN meeting, and I have to say it was pretty extraordinary. The imaging of the features of the head of this person, and you know, when I sort of fed back, could it possibly be anything to do with the lighting? They said absolutely not. They knew intimately well not only the setup of the UN at this particular, it was an event where Putin was speaking, and there were certain things that went on which were very unusual in terms of protocol at that particular, which I won't go into now, but suffice it to say, it had sort of, again, hallmarks of of being slightly out of the ordinary, and they were citing that this was indeed evidence of an Anunnaki, and it may well be. And but they were also saying, from the special forces point of view, who have been engaged in dealing in combat with these others on the human side. These are human military. I can't say too much more about that because I'm not allowed to at the moment. I can't share it for their safety. But anyway, a little bit. But they were saying that you know, that the main problems of the planet are to do with the negative ETs, and they have been involved in, as they say, kicking their ass, and it's been going for a very, very long time, and in modern times, militaristically as well, which is deeply under wraps. And I think that is possibly the problem, that everybody's getting a bit twitchy at the moment, the forces and the powers that be and the military, because it has to come out, their involvement, I think, with what's been going on, simply because if we don't know it, we can't heal it. And I, you know, I make no apologies for you know, having to talk now and again or reference the so-called negative. It's part of the lesson. It's part of us learning discernment. So anyway, I don't know whether you also have had any information or experiences where that side of life, the military, those powers that be, have been interacting with you and your work.
Yeah, we just had a base commander leave here, you know, just a few days ago. And I've had Air Force base commanders and all kinds of people up here, and you know, talking about the cleanup and what's going on. Really? And we've lost a lot of underground facilities here because of that, because they were being utilized by the darker forces, and you know, there was alliances and agreements made with the wrong groups, you know, which we shouldn't be working with, and it turned ugly. Started turning really bad and turning ugly, and then all of a sudden they started saying, hey, we need help getting rid of these guys, you know, that we did make these agreements with. So there's a lot of that going on. You know, myself, I've had a lot of encounters with these beings, you know, and keeping them out of my space, and you know, they've tried to make my life a living hell, you know, but I just keep practicing that loving detachment, you know, and focusing that love and joy and bliss at them, and then calling in the higher beings to deal with it. What I found out is the, you know, that whole gray, it's a really gray area, you know, the grays, because I think there's about 80 species of them or more. I'm not sure how many different ones, and some are hybrids and some are half human. And so there's so much going on in the gray area, but there are some very nasty grays too, that, you know, some of the tall grays you want to avoid, and they're in cahoots with some of the Dracos and the reptilians, which are going through a major cleanup right now with that group. The good news is that the Anunnaki are back, but what happened was the fallen Anunnaki were the ones that really created most of the problems here. And you know, the image of the bearded god is where we got that image from. Those are the Anunnaki. And so, you know, we have so many different religions, and all the religions were based on a different group, you know, a different Anunnaki leader or whatever. You know, so you had Enlil and Enki and Marduk and all these guys, and they're all warring on each other, and they're all creating their different religions. Marduk created the Muslim religion and went off in that direction. And unfortunately, Marduk actually made a pact with some reptilians and grays for total supremacy on the earth, and brought them in, even against his own people. And we're still cleaning things up, you know, from thousands and thousands of years ago of these events that happened. But the earth was actually, there was 12 major star nations. I think there's 22 involved right now that were involved in terraforming Earth, and it was a peaceful process, and it was supposed to be like an Eden, where the Earth would evolve to its highest potential, and you know, it has more DNA, more life, plant, animal, and human DNA than any other planet, you know, in the galaxy right now, and it's just an incredible biological reserve that needs to be preserved. And the problem with it, it was going really well, and then the reptilians came in, and the other ones came in and just hijacked it, and you know, reset it. And the fallen Anunnaki actually got involved with that too as well. But the whole time there were actually benevolent Anunnaki that actually aligned with universal law, that weren't negative. And a lot of people think the Anunnaki are reptilian. They're not. They did join the reptilians. Some of them did. The lower ones did. But the Anunnaki are the bearded gods. They're the ones that. But you can see in the ancient stone carvings the reptilians standing right alongside the reptilian gods, along with these beautiful lion beings, like Sekhmet and things like that, which are positive. They're a very positive group. Actually, they're protectors of the gods, and they're here to help us now. They're actually heavily involved in the cleanup, because some of this cleanup process, there's some very, very nasty entities that, these seventh dimensional lion beings, when they come in, it's game over. They're 17 feet tall. They're very big, and they're very like Sekhmet. The statue of Sekhmet, I think, is 14 feet tall, and that's actually how tall she was. So they're very benevolent. They left when the Anunnaki fell. They left because they said, you're not operating within universal law, so we can't protect you anymore. We can't be a part of this, and they left. But they're returning. The benevolent Anunnaki are turning along with the lion beings, and some are fifth dimensional, sixth dimensional, some are seventh dimensional feline beings.
That's really interesting, because when I went to Egypt so many years ago now, when I came out of one of the tombs, one of the Egyptian guys said, "It's Sekhmet, it's Sekhmet."
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know what energy he was picking up on, but that's interesting. Anyway, I've got a question for you from Slim Boy in the chat room there. It says, has James any info on white orbs seen flying into chemtrails that seem to fire a beam into them? Any?
Yeah, I have watched that. There is a lot of intervention going on with the chemtrails. And if there wasn't, most of them would probably be dead right now with the stuff they're spraying. But we're having heavy chemtrailing up here, and I've been very vocal about it for years. Back in the 90s, I was talking about it. And, it's something that I know there's science parks and some other people are saying that they've stopped, but they haven't, because you just have to look out the window. They're going.
Yeah, that's right. Interestingly, in 2011, I was taking some pictures of chemtrails for an American friend of mine, just to show her what was going on over here, because she was doing some project on chemtrails, really. And it was where I was looking was too bright, and I just snapped my camera into there and uploaded the 3 pictures. And what I saw was really astonishing. And I saw a pencil-like object coming out of the direction of the sun in 2 frames or 3 frames, heading away. But then I had someone use, I don't know if you've heard of this, it's a piece of software called Image J. I hadn't heard of it before. Apparently it's used to better see cave paintings that maybe have almost faded off. It can bring those out by contrast. Anyway, so he then applied Image J to my photographs, and I've got one with a helicopter and a UFO in the same location, which is, this was in the East Midlands in the UK, in a sort of a spring day in 2011. And their opinion was the chemtrail showed up purple in this particular configuration of contrasting colors, and it looked like, and it does look like, that the ship or craft or whatever that was is drawing in the chemtrail. It's very interesting. It's not obvious from the picture without the imaging enhancement, but it is fascinating. And I thought, well, and the guy said, well, maybe, Jan, this is the first time this has ever been photographed. I don't know if that is the case, that is what was happening, but it's just interesting because it definitely did show a different configuration of energy going on around the craft, which wasn't visible to the naked eye, by the way. So that was just that was just fascinating. So maybe there is, and also it puts me in mind, I'm sure you know of it, that Wilbert B. Smith, when he talked about his colleagues clearing up, one of his boys topside, as he called it, clearing out our atmosphere and then dumping it away from population areas. So we've been getting a lot of help on and off. But I don't know, I wonder who you think that the chemtrails, Monsanto, the banksters and all those lot, who they've been terraforming the Earth for. It certainly isn't for humans, because we don't do well with less oxygen.
No, no. Well, you know, it looks like, to me, I guess this is all speculation or whatever, but I know some of the Greys and some of the reptilians live on very toxic planets, and they can handle that, handle the toxins. You know, we can't, and so you know, I wouldn't be surprised if that's where things are going. And you know, the bottom line, people are going, oh, chemtrails, this, you know, they don't exist. It's your imagination and things like that. You know, the geoengineering program is so heavily public right now. I don't know how anybody can even say that. I mean, they even had Senate hearings on it, and I just put out an email where they had a Senate hearing on it, and they talked about all the pitfalls of the geoengineering, how it was going to create droughts and floods and destroy the forests, and it was going to create a lot of Alzheimer's and autism and very debilitating effects. They had these hearings in the Senate, and they went ahead and said, yeah, let's go for it. You know, so who are these senators? I have to ask myself, you know, who's got, you know, control of their minds, and why would they even agree upon such a thing? And I sent these, you know, transcripts of these hearings out to show people, look, you've been sold down the river, you know, and most of those guys in there will, you know, whoever's going to pay them to say what, they're going to say it. You know, that's just the way they are.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of sad, but
it is shocking the degree of degradation that our health and wellness has taken a hit on, and not to mention the planet, of course. And I actually think it's amazing we're still standing.
Considering what they've sprayed on us. I mean, I know a lot of German physicists that have been monitoring this, and they said this is just insanity, you know. And with all these things like Morgellons and all these things, he goes, this is like Satan's nightmare, or Satan's dream is what he said, you know. He said Morgellons exactly. And all these other things. He said you can just totally, you know, destroy people with a flick of a switch once they get this Morgellons in their system. You know, they've got all these little nanobots and everything that they're spraying up there. So, you know, between that and the biologicals and just the aluminum, barium, and strontium that they're spraying are all extremely debilitating. And for them to keep spraying things like that is pure insanity. And I also hear the people that in defense, they go, well, why would they spray it on their own people? And why would they engage in these inhuman acts? And I said, because they're not human. They've lost their humanity a long time ago. They've turned their souls over to another force, another energy. And that energy doesn't care whether they live or their families live or anything else. And unfortunately, sometimes when you go up the hierarchical ladder, you know, of power and wealth, when you get on the top levels, you're not talking human. You know, you're talking alien, basically, or influenced.
But I mean, it's just logical, isn't it? Because would a real human truly perpetrate this on people, knowing that it was equally hit their son, their daughter, their mother? I mean, it doesn't make sense unless there are other things in the mix, which I you know, have to agree with you. I think that's exactly it. And maybe those you know, those Rothschilds and Rockefellers and all those kind of families already have a genetic mix which allows them to absorb the toxicity without, you know, detrimental I don't know, aspects that other people, you know.
Well, they're not using rational thought. They're basically irrational. And my theory is that, you know, through the ceremonies and the other things that they go through and stuff like that, is that they actually pretty much sell their souls, and there's a wedge put between their soul and their personality self, so they can't connect with their soul, and the other guys are just playing them like puppets. And so in their lust for power and wealth, and, you know, that they've actually sold their souls, basically, and that's the only thing that makes sense, because, as I said before, these acts are inhuman. You know, humans don't do this. And you know, you've got to either be inhuman or a total pathological, well, they are kind of pathological liars, you know, but a total psychopath, you know, to do the things that they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's absolutely crazy, crazy. So, James, let's get on to just talking about the ET Ranch. Tell
All
us
right.
all about that and how that came into being.
Okay. On a lighter note, yeah. The
Yeah,
yeah, basically it's funny, people go, you're a doom and gloomer, you're preaching fear and stuff like that. And I said, I don't have any fear. I said, I'm just telling it like it is, and so
exactly.
I'm practicing loving detachment, but I do love the earth and I do love humanity, and that's why I'm doing these things. It's not out of fear or anything else. It's out of love and to get this planet back on course, which is what he said he's all about, is creating a template where people can come and experience what it's like to live a very spiritual life, in harmony with nature, using clean technology, kind of a vision of the future where, we don't have all the competition and the greed and the other stuff going on. And when people come here, they feel that energy. They just, right away, they go, this is home. It feels like home.
Tell us exactly where you are, where the ranch is, James, for those who don't know.
Yeah, we're right at the base of Mount Adams, which is in Trout Lake, Washington, and it's it's right in between St. Helens and Hood and Mount Hood, in the chain, in the volcanic chain, you might say. And we're just about 20 minutes away from Columbia River, so we're right next to the border of Washington and Oregon.
Yeah, sounds lovely. Sounds absolutely gorgeous. So, is it quite a big property there, James? Because I know you have people staying, but I don't know to what extent. I mean, have you got sort of lots of rooms there or chalets? How does it work?
Yeah, there's over 70 acres here, and so we have quite a few rooms. I think we have, let me see, 8. Well, we have 8 main rooms, and then we have a lot of other rooms that, like yurts, little yurts all over the place. And a lot of people come up here and camp, and we have beautiful outdoor bathrooms and a big conference building, and things like that. So the best thing to do is come up here and camp, because then you're right in the field of dreams, where all this magic happens. And the field it's a 16-acre field of echinacea, but there's just wall-to-wall orbs and light spheres and masters appearing. We have photographs of Kuan Yin appearing and Mary appearing and a lot of other beings, just beautiful pictures. Babaji, we have a beautiful picture of Babaji actually manifesting, and we got a photograph of it. So it's like, it's not just the ETs, it's the masters, and the nature kingdom is very present here. And we're actually where there's a lot of Bigfoot sightings here. We have a juvenile Bigfoot here that comes through every once in a while and terrorizes people. It's pretty funny. But
so they haven't actually stopped by.
He's a prankster. He likes to just freak people out every once in a while. He's always smiling, but he comes in, he makes an appearance, and then disappears real fast. And Clyde Lewis was here with Ground Zero. It's a massive radio show here. It's international, and he came walking out the guest house, and this Bigfoot ran right up to him, slid, and stopped, and smiled at him, and then took off, running the other way through the apple orchard.
And how big is this juvenile?
He's about a little over 6 feet.
Okay.
Yes.
And you reckon he's a juvenile because he's a bit of a prankster?
Yeah, he's small. But we have pictures of his tracks, and his tracks have the hinged foot, like an ape, their feet are hinged. And it's a big, round, kind of hinged foot. But I have a lot of pictures of his tracks and everything here. But, they...
I was going to say, have you ever seen Mom and Dad?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I've seen Mom and Dad. So I've seen quite a few here, but I've been lucky. I don't know, lucky or just guided to them. But I've had probably, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4 sightings.
Really?
Yeah, because I've been here about 30 years, and just to the north of us is Skamania County, and they've actually written legislation that you cannot harm these beings in any way, and that they're protected.
Goodness
And
for that. Wow.
yeah, and if you shoot one of them, you go to jail for murder.
Good.
Basically. Yeah.
Absolutely. So they haven't got confident enough to come and say hello then.
Well, they do in their own way. They're very very skittish. They're very shy, but they're also very curious. And the more you meditate, the closer you get to them. Basically, the more we get our act together, the closer.
Well,
You know,
what do you think they are, these beings? Do you think they have some interdimensional element to them, some ET link, or are they from the Earth? Well, what's your opinion about that so far?
I think there's multiple things going on. I think they're in the Native American lore. They talk about them, and they said most of them are good, but every once in a while they said in the old times they had some ones that were a bit rogue, and they were having problems with them, so they had to they had to go to war with them, and he said actually the other ones helped them. The benevolent one actually showed them where they were, to get rid of them. But that's some of the old stories you hear about. But the ones around here, there's several things going on. One, I've actually seen them just vanish. They'll be walking across a field, and there's a lot of multiple witnesses have seen this, and they just vanish. There's nowhere where they could have gone. I had a female walk in front of me 50 feet away and just disappeared, just phased out right in front of me. So I have no doubt that they have some pretty amazing abilities. But I got a real like they're very advanced in the nature kingdom. They don't have technology or anything, but they're extremely advanced in their own way, more advanced than we are. Especially in they don't destroy their environment.
Doesn't really take much at the moment, does it? I mean, the people they're leaving, my goodness me, it's shocking. So I had another question from David Monroe, and he was asking about about intervention from the others. Let me just get it up, and let me just he just loves what you're doing, by the way, and thinks it's wonderful and uplifting, and just wants to hang on, sorry, I just can't quite see it. So what people have to do at this crucial time to remain positive regarding our emerging from the dark. And I guess, you could throw into the light, what's going on with this, Paris false flag and all of that stuff. Just how do we, do you have some mechanism or some system for managing? Because a lot of people are, from what I say just before you answer, are seesawing wildly between hanging on in there and getting their meditation done and stuff, and then falling into deep despair. It's really hard at the moment for people.
Yeah. And there's been some waves of energy coming through the earth lately that's pushing everything up, and people are experiencing these deep sadness, where they just cry for no reason, or they'll feel like agitated or something like that. And that's these waves of energy that are coming through the planet. We're moving into a highly energized place in space, and we're getting bombarded with gamma rays and everything else. And these would take about 50 hits a day. We're beyond 500 now of getting hit by these other pulses and bursts. And so whenever you add energy into a system, the higher frequency energy is, that's 7th dimensional energy, a gamma ray, and when it hits the planet. So it's going to push everything up. And so we're all going through a process. But the way I look at it is that it's a good process. There has to be some chaos, but the other stuff has to come to the surface. It's part of the clearing process. So hang in there, don't get upset. I see this, the Paris bombing, the false flag programs, and all the stuff they're doing are so obvious. And right away, where they used to be able to get away for things for years until it surfaces immediately, right away. I mean, the internet is just flooded with all the discrepancies and all the problems with what they're trying to sell.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so I just get this is all gonna, in a way, they're just ensuring their own demise in the things that they're doing, because they're creating their own demise by the actions that they're taking. It's like these guys are so arrogant, they don't believe in karma. They think they're beyond it. But there is action reaction, and you can't, no matter how arrogant you are, you can't get away from it, and so all that's going to be accelerated, and everything's going to come to the surface. And that's, in the old days they said no rock should be left turned, and all the iniquities will be shouted from the rooftops. Well, we're in those times right now, and there's just no way of getting around it. To me, I'm almost shocked at how all the information is out there, but these people keep going, and they're in the limelight, and they're still going forward, and you just go, how do you even show your face?
Yeah,
they're just so blatant and arrogant and everything. I go, how do you even show your face in society right now, considering all the things you've done and all the stuff that's come to the surface and everything else? But it's just I just think it's a process we're going through, that eventually the people are just going to say enough, we're done with this, and just move on to the next level.
Yeah, I wonder how. I can't imagine quite what that will look like, because people, mainstream media, of course, will not show what, the reality of what's going on. They're only feeding us the party line, as it were. So for the mass of the public, unless we get, I don't know what you think about this, a really big hit energetically that is just going to force a shift in consciousness, like a pole shift, but consciousness.
Yes.
I don't know how, I can't see it. I can't see how we're going to do it. And another question from David relating to that was also, what are the reasons for non-intervention in human affairs by benevolent ETs, being that it's, the human situation is pretty dire. And of course, we know we've done it ourselves, but so many of us, haven't bought into that, and we feel we don't have a voice or an ability to impact the decisions that are being made, causing more war and conflict and harm.
Mm-hmm. It's a tough one, because there was the prime directive or divine
Sure.
intervention, because it would mess with the evolution, and so that was strongly in place. But the problem is that the dark ones weren't honoring that, and they were just totally trespassing on free will and our own right to self-determination. And it got so bad they actually have to now. They have to take the gloves off and get dirty and get down here and start cleaning things up, and which they are doing, on a very large scale. And they have been, battling it out in the other dimensions too, to make it clear, and so a lot of these the puppet masters have been removed, and now we've got the puppets just floundering, making one stupid mistake after another. They're not even rational, when they speak, and things like that, because they've lost their puppet masters. So we're in that process. It's like a top-down process, but it's I've gone out in the field and screamed at them and shook my fist at them and said, what the hell are you doing? You need to get down here and get your hands dirty. We're getting our butts kicked down here. And
good for you. I'll be railing too.
Yeah, and some of my words have gone to some pretty high councils, so where I just did not hold back on these councils. I was going out of body. I have a lot of photographs where they see me just leave my body and go up on the ships and things.
Okay.
And so, I've gone toe to toe with the councils and told them, like, this is nonsense. You can't just sit back. How evolved is that? You call yourself highly involved. How can you sit back and observe this, all the pain and suffering and all the other things going on here, and not intervene? I said the reason we are in this mess is because of so much intervention, negative intervention.
Yeah.
And I guess a lot of other people have been doing that as well. So finally, they are, kind of coming off their clouds and ships and starting to get busy, down here, which is great.
Tell us about some of the councils and these other bodies who are overseeing, maybe something along of the structure that you're aware of, and those perhaps the main players of these other races or species.
Well, there's a galactic federation, like it's a Council of Light, which is way up there. I mean, these guys are way up on the food chain. And then there's the Andromedan Council, there's the Orion Council of Light, there's the Pleiadians are involved in that, and the Andromedan councils, they're very involved in what's going on here. And a lot of the Pleiadians actually went to the Andromedan Council when they saw how highly evolved. I mean, these people have magnetized light bodies and light ships, and they're extremely advanced, very powerful. And they went to them and they said, "Will you lead us?" And the Andromedans said no. You know, and they're kind of shocked by that. And they said, "You need to lead yourselves. You know, we're not here to create a dependency." And so they said, "We'll help you lead yourselves." And even the benevolent Anunnaki that are returning now are making it very clear that they're saying, "Look, you know, you need to lead yourselves from your own heart and soul. You need to clean up your act, you know, and drop all the old wounds and traumas and wrong conclusions and make your own personal connection to source, you know, and lead yourself from that connection." So they don't want to come in and create a huge babysitting job and be responsible for that. They want us to lead ourselves. And there's an old saying, you know, God helps those who help themselves. And they kind of operate under that same program. If we're going forward, they'll step in and help, and they'll help us out to a pretty large degree. But, you know, we've got to do our work, and, you know, which means, you know, hands-on work, and we have to, you know, rise in consciousness too, so we can actually work with them. So there's a lot of self-responsibility involved in this whole process.
Yes, I know that, and you know, we all struggle with the conditions, because as battered as the world is, so it seems to come on a one-to-one level. So many people I know are not only struggling with personal issues and health, so much health issues. It's just astonishing, and it would be interesting. I don't know if any of your connections with these others have given you any advice on the human health condition, or any advice on how we can better be healthy, really, whilst we're going through these are, you know, some of them are very deep wounds, pains and traumas, and it's taking a lot of working through with, you know, it's really hard.
Well, you know, there's so many levels to this. One is basically, you know, we need to get our consciousness right, you know, and focus on love and joy and bliss, and get into creationary mind and create our own reality versus just reacting to what's happening, you know, around us. You know, it's very important to know where your food is coming from, where your water's coming from. You know, I always tell people, you know, some people say, well, you have to be a vegetarian, or you have to be this or that. And I say, well, you know, you need to eat really close to the earth, and get away from all the processed food and things like that, and know your body type. What is your body telling you it needs? You know, I've seen people that actually got really ill and messed up because they were vegetarians, and their body just wasn't responding right to it. And as soon as they ate a little bit of meat, they got grounded and they started feeling great again, you know. So I know the veggie Nazis are probably sharpening their daggers right now. You know?
I'm a vegetarian myself, and I can't ever imagine again eating meat, but my system is extremely well adjusted to it. And also I do have my practices, and I'm a therapist, so I'm used to working with my energy fields and acclimatizing. But equally, I don't expect everybody to be a vegetarian, but it's like working with what you can work with. And, you know, you know, my blood type would indicate a meat eater, but that's never going to happen. You know, that's long gone for me. But that's my choice, and I don't have any issues at all with what anybody, you know, choice-wise has. It's just doing it well as we can. And, you know, again, what I'm seeing in my immediate location is a lot of mental health issues. Just in society, you know, there are people on the street around me who are, I mean, clearly, you know, maybe it's like a care in the community kind of scenario, but there's not much care going on, I can tell you that. And meanwhile, there's all this. When I moved back into this location from the southeast coast of Hastings a couple of years back, my system went into shock by the, I don't know what to call it, the mental frequency. It hit me really hard, and it took me a long time, and I mean months, to readjust to that frequency, because I had to be out in it, you know, to get from A to B. It needed me, and I had to be walking past these people sometimes, and I don't mean there's vast amounts of them, but it's very intense, and it is, I still find it hard. It's still it still hurts in a way. It still impacts me, what you say. Not hurts, it impacts me.
Yeah, it's sad seeing the human condition, you know, and what it's fallen to, and a lot of that's perpetuated, you know, and you know, it comes with the frequency generators and cell towers and the Gwyn towers and all the other HARP, you know, and the chemtrails, you add that to it and everything else, and a lot of people are just operating at a very subhuman level. You know, just the water alone has something like 650 to 800 carcinogens in it, you know, as well as the fluoride, you know. And a lot of times I look at this and I go, oh, the fluoride's working, you know. It's like, because people are just not getting it. It's almost like they can't get it, you know. And you know, aspartame and all the other things, it's obvious that, you know, it's working. But, you know, what I see is the only thing we can do right now is to do as many cleanses as we can, try to get the metals out of our system. You know, the heavy metals, there's a lot of cleanses you can do for that. You can search that on it, you know, detox methods. Find one that works for you. We do a lot of that. We raise all of our own food here. We have a whole herd of yaks and things like that. And we kind of, I live more of a Native American style. You know, I do eat meat, but I eat very close to the earth. I love buffalo. I love to eat, you know, it's a different meat when you eat it. It doesn't, it's not heavy. Your body, it just absorbs it immediately. It's just a whole different animal. But we've had, you know, a couple yaks that we had to get rid of here. We have a herd of yaks here, you know, from
yeah, wonderful.
So everything is used. You know, if we do end up having to, you know, put down a yak or take a yak, you know, everything is used. And so, and it's all done very humanely and ceremony. You know, we use, it's a very ceremony around it and everything else. I don't like doing that. I usually don't. We just had to, you know, when you have a big herd of yaks, every once in a while you have to take one out. You know, we had one yak here. It was a female yak, and I named her Hamburger, you know, in the very beginning because she was really, I know, but she was very ornery. I mean, she got me a couple times and a few other people, and she just, her energy just messed the whole herd up. And as soon as we got rid of her, the herd went back to peace again, and they're hanging out. They have a great life here. You know, we just breed them as pairs usually and sell them off as breeding pairs for other people that want to raise yaks. But, you know, we had one that we had to get rid of just because, I mean, she was taking everybody out and creating so many problems, you know.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's you got to do what you got to do. But so at the ET Ranch, I know that you have lots of events there. So you raise food. Do you have arable? Do you grow anything like the wheat and the stuff like that, or the corn, or?
Yeah, we have very large gardens here. We have huge gardens here. I love gardening more than anything. We do a lot of, we're doing hydroponic gardening right now.
Wonderful.
We're aquaponics, where we have the fish and the big bins and everything, and growing things in that. So we're kind of doing cutting edge on everything. And, you know, we have some of the top healing technologies, things like that we're working on getting together, but that's going to take some funding to get that together. But I'm working with some physicists that have just incredible healing technology. One is this oxygenated water that it's Langenberg Tech, you know, or Langenberg Research, if you want to check out that. And they actually,
I'm just going to into the chat box. If you can just spell that. Is it Langenberg? Sorry.
Yeah, hang on a second. I'll put it in.
Oh, great. Thanks. That's great. Wonderful. We at People's Internet Radio, the whole ethos of this whole station is all about sovereignty, supporting one another, helping each other in every single way we can with advice, whether it's legal. There's some amazing minds here. So we share as much information as possible. That's absolutely great. I'm going to copy that and send it across to the team out there. Thank you. So tell us about the water there.
Yeah, he actually crystallized oxygen and suspended it in a microhydrant. So the water hydrates your body immediately, and the oxygen levels in the water are off the scale. And oxygen's the highest systemic antibiotic you can get. But when you take any kind of virus or bacteria and you let this water touch it, it actually pops it back into a crystalline form from a harmful structure, and it actually becomes food. for your body, but it's just unbelievable some of the technology that they're coming out with, and we're working on incorporating that into the ranch.
Oh, that sounds absolutely wonderful. I take H2O2, food grade, obviously.
Yeah.
I've taken it for, and I don't know, 20, 25 years. I mean, I don't take it necessarily every day, but every time there's a little something going on, I use it in a spray form in distilled water. Absolutely amazing. And I've passed that out to so many people, and they've also benefited from it. It does, it's not a wonderful taste or anything, but it is the next best thing you can do to keep yourself clean, and things like diatomaceous earth to try and clear out those heavy metals, along with curcumin and stuff like that, Absolutely fantastic. And along with, again, these things aren't expensive, and apple cider vinegar, just to set up the digestive, help with the pH balance, deal with, loads of issues. It's fantastic what there is for relatively, either free, like EFT and a bit of reflexology, all of that kind of thing, and neuropathy and all of that. It is fantastic. So, we can
do massage and acupuncture, and we have all kinds of people here at the ranch that we support, that do all kinds of healing technologies. And it's funny, Otto Warburg in 1927 gave us the cure for cancer, and they've suppressed it. And basically what he said is all you have to do is raise the blood oxygen and raise the pH, and cancer can't exist. It's anaerobic. And so, all these guys have given us this research, and all these doctors are healing every form of cancer you can think of just by oxygen therapies or baking soda or things like that, and they work, but unfortunately the heat, it's against the law to heal somebody, especially of cancer.
Oh, that's right. It's such a fantastic business, isn't it? And, got Hoxie over there as well, who I think was 42, he was going to, they were going to agree on that, and then, came back and they didn't agree on going ahead with that. And then you've got, I think it's just even this week, Dr. Brzezinski again, the flipping FDA are on his case. I mean, that man has saved so many people's lives. Okay, it's a different technique, but it's working. I mean, for goodness sake, I mean, that shows you right there, doesn't it? These people are not human, because a human like Brzezinski is doing all he can to support these people who are in dire need. It drives me insane.
Well, Royal Rife, with the Rife technology, actually was exploding the BX virus that was causing cancer, and people, that technology's around, but the problem he was having is that when he turned on his devices, it inoculated everybody within about 11 miles, if that is a problem. And so, that all of a sudden, the big pharma goes, oh, wait a second, you drive into a town, turn your machine off, everybody's going to go off their meds. We can't have that, so it's ongoing. I'm just seeing right now, it's so blatantly obvious that almost all of our institutions and industries right now are profit and greed driven, and they're not aligned with humanitarian or doing what's highest and best good. They're extremely integrity challenged, when it comes to that.
I like that.
And it's all surfacing. I mean, there are so many documentaries on cancer now, and running from the cure and all these things that are coming out now. Are exposing all this. So that's all part of the process. I mean, it's gotten so ugly and so dark, and now there's all these people that are rising up and shining the light on it. So I just think all of these institutions and agencies that are capitalizing, on war and disease, and things like that are all basically going to fold in on themselves. They're going to implode because they're not frequency specific to the earth.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I just said, sorry to interrupt, I just said one can only hope, because it's time already. I'm fed up. I'm ready to move on. I'm ready to. And we have everything we need.
I mean, even the head of Lockheed, right before he died, which that might have been orchestrated, but he went public and he said, we have the technology to take ET home. We have the field synergy. We have all that technology. Why are we still groveling? It's because the powers that were, you know, which are fast imploding on themselves.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So again, just focusing back on the ET Ranch, just take us through some of the events that you've had there, where you've had sightings and manifestations, and how that works. Do you get a group together for a week, or do you do it on a daily basis? How does it? What's the structure that you run there?
We have conferences here, and we'll have like 300 people here at some of these conferences, and we'll have top-notch speakers from around the world that will come, and they cover everything from advanced science technologies to UFOs, you know, to paranormal, to you name it. You know, we have you know, the best of the best in the healing fields and things like that come here and do lectures and workshops. So we do a lot of that. We do. We just had Tashina here, which is a grandmother. She's an Apache grandmother, like a wisdom keeper, and we did a galactic medicine wheel out in the main field. And boy, the energy that came in on that one! I mean, the medicine wheel is still active. The energy you walk, and each one honors the different groups. You know, like the Andromedans, the Sirians, the Pleiadians, and they have a space in this wheel. It's pretty big. And when you step into that space, you feel the energy. I mean, you'll find your Star Nation connection when you go around. You walk into one of the little circles in there. You walk in there, and all of a sudden, we'll just lose it and start bawling and crying. You know, it's a good thing. You know, it's a reunification. So we do everything from high science to extreme. You know, some very high spiritual practices here, and we do transpersonal release sessions where we take people through. We find out who their main teacher and guide is, and we get rid of any hitchhikers or any unseen entities that don't need to be there. And we take them through past lives and clear the ones we need to clear, and then hook them up to the ones that are beneficial. And then we go from age 1 and pull their blocks and patterns out, childhood patterns. And that's a big one too. It blows people, you know, wide open. It's like a quantum leap in consciousness. But there's so many different things that we do here. Yeah, and we're working on more. I mean, I have connections now where I've been funding this whole thing through my own pocket, you know, through book sales and appearances and counseling.
Well done.
But finally, I think we're going to finally get some help here where we can actually really bring these other technologies and really get this off the road, you know, get this launched properly.
Oh, I'm really excited for you. I really hope that comes to pass and that I can get over there and come and see you guys.
Yeah.
What's your feeling about the Keshe technology? Are you taking that on board? Are you doing anything with that?
Yeah, I am. I'm working with one of his right-hand people, if it isn't his own right-hand person. Yeah, and so I'm looking at that technology. He's getting a lot of flack, and a lot of people are like, you know, attacking him and making all kinds of character assassinations, which is ridiculous. You know, the guy's delivered. You know, he's actually created it, does work, and he's delivering the units. You know, so we actually had one of his people here, and we did the experiments, and they worked. You know, the units worked, and the wires, the superconductive wires, you know, actually generated. They're just sitting there, laying there, started generating electricity. So
I'm really excited for that, James. That's wonderful. Yeah. That's good news.
We're working very closely with that, and other scientists too that are even beyond that. I mean, that we have access to counter-gravity and anti-gravity, and you know, these are all fuelless energy technologies that when you rev them up, they actually fly. You know, some of them, if you don't put a governor on them, they'll punch a hole right through your roof and keep going. You know.
You know, I don't know whether you've heard or come across John Searle.
Yes.
You've heard the SEG and his story. I don't know whether you met him, but I've met him a few times, and I know he's over in I think it's San Diego. I can't remember now. Anyway, again, still developing. I'm not quite sure where it's at the moment. But his early story was talking about, you know, as a kid back in, I don't know what it was, 48 or something like that. And this thing went straight out through the roof.
Yeah.
And the next time he held it down, it went superconductive, and he got to prise his fingers off the freezing.
Yeah, that's exactly what these things are. They're ice cold when they're running.
Yeah.
And if you don't put a governor on it, they will punch a hole. Actually, one of the scientists broke his arm trying to grab one. You know, it was, you know, revving up too much, and he goes, "Oh no!" And he started to lift off, and he went to grab it, and it actually broke its arm. His arm, you know, took off so fast. But yeah, it's yeah. I mean, we've had this technology since the 30s. You know,
absolutely. Well, yeah. I was going to say even a little bit before, if you talk about Tesla and wireless technologies and all of that kind of stuff. I mean, and much more. You know, it does. It gives me a little bit of a fit of Tourette's.
Yeah. Well, when you think that we've been going back and forth to Mars in the 60s, you know, what does that tell you? What do you think they're doing now? And so a lot of people can't handle this. You know, well, what about the space shuttle? You know, what about the Apollo and everything else? And I said, that's window dressing. You know, that's all window dressing to keep everybody focused on that. And I said, you look at Area 51. I said, that's 51. What about 50, 49, and 52 and 53? You know, what about all the other bases, you know, in between there? And I said also too, Area 51 is again, it's not that big a deal what they have there. All the really good stuff is in Area 52 in Utah, is where all the really high tech stuff is, and the ships and all the other stuff that they've been playing with. And you know, they're in a blink of the eye, they're going to Alpha Centauri right now and things like that. They have, you know, incredible technologies that they're using, and that's what the head of Lockheed was talking about. You know, that, you know, we can take ET home. But you know, it's very sad. I mean, General Corso covered this in Day After Roswell. There's a lot of people that are coming forward and trying to tell us, you know, hey, we have these technologies. We can totally clean up the planet. You know, we can put them to use.
And we can do it really fast as well. I mean, we really could. A few dedicated people around the planet, we could really make this happen big style.
Yeah.
And it's just heartbreaking, you know, and I say, just gives me an outbreak of Tourette's every now and again.
Yeah, I think Kesh is one of many. I mean, he's kind of leading the field and getting it out there, you know, and getting the technology out there, but he's one of many. And these kids coming up now, these little geniuses, they're coming in just totally lit up, and then it's like child's play, you know, to build these devices, and you know, and also they're totally hooked in, you know, and tapped into these other dimensions. We had an incident here. It was really funny. We were sitting out all night. There was no activity. It was really slow, nothing happening, and this little 5-year-old kid was cooking a marshmallow, you know, on the fire, and he turned out and walked out in the field, and he said, "Mr. Spaceman, I have a marshmallow for you." And these ships just totally lit up. 2 ships popped up, and we're sitting right above them in the field, and then they took off, you know. So, you know, to me, when a 5-year-old can do that, you know, it's like I think we missed something. You know, we're missing something in our lifestyle, in our consciousness, or whatever, because, you know, he knew they're there. The kid knew they're there, and he was pointing right at him with a marshmallow.
And do you think then, James, at this moment in time that I don't know, people call them star children, indigo kids, this kind of thing. Do you think that that those folks, along with the rest of us, I don't consider myself a star child or anything, that there'll be enough volume of energy to get us back? Do you think? Because at the moment, you know, like with the Paris business and where all that nonsense is heading, you can read it where they're trying to take us, and you know, I don't know how we stop that, frankly.
Well, you know, with all the inoculations and the aspartame and all the food additives and everything else, they're doing, you know, everything to shut this down. But some of these kids just seem to be immune to it. You know, it doesn't really bother them all. I guess they're vibrating at such a high frequency. It's not working. That's the game. It's all about frequency, raising your frequency. The thing about the powers that are trying all this nonsense, they're not frequency specific to the Earth and where she's going, and the whole universe is behind this shift. So, I mean, they're toast. I hate to say it, but there's no way they're going to make it through this shift. And the best thing they can do right now is to redirect their energies towards the awakening healing process and ask for some divine intervention for themselves, you know, to help clear up some of their karma. and things like that, and raise their frequencies, because they have nowhere to go. You know, they can't run away to Mars. They can't run away to any other planet. This is a universal shift that's happening. And so, you know, they can't hide in their underground bases. You know, you can't hide from yourself.
Yeah.
And yourself is going to get activated. I mean, gamma rays don't hesitate for anything. They don't, you know, they're going to come through. They're not gonna mess around. But the thing about this is that I actually feel sorry for these guys, because I see them, a lot of these people that used to be very powerful people, they're aging rapidly. They're losing it. You know, their anger and their rage and all the stuff that they never processed is coming up now. They don't have a clue, because they've chosen to totally ignore it and just, you know, the material world and whatever they can amass. And there's no love in their life at all. They don't have any friends that I would call a real friend, you know, just those who would like to capitalize on their wealth or whatever, are the ones sucking around them. But, you know, it's a very sad life, and it's a very unconscious life and a very unfulfilling life that they've chosen. And there's no gain in that program at all. And it's actually devolution. You know, they're gonna end up, they're not even going to be able to incarnate on Earth, because the Earth is moving outside of their range of frequency. So they're going to have to go work their stuff out somewhere else, you know. And some of them are going to be thrown into the void, and they're just going to be, they're going to stay there, you know, until they
recycled.
they have a huge reality check, you know.
Yeah. It really is. I don't know what, you know, people keep saying, well, you know, mentioning the time factor, if there is such a thing, but certainly in this cycle, let's say, we're really coming to a fulcrum, aren't we? We're really coming to a crux point. Have you been given any indication from your connections? And also, I was going to ask you a little bit more about the councils there, about a time factor. You know, we're already, you know, coming up to the end of 2015. Mm-hmm. And if we don't go into 2016 with war, that'll be fantastic. But how do they see the timing of things, you know, smoothing out? So don't, you know, kind of generate these terrible scenarios.
They've been telling me that like 2016, 17 are just very pivotal points, and that we're going to move through some extreme energies that we're going to have to evolve very quickly. And it's a good thing, you know, it's a positive thing, but we're going to have to learn how to release the past and let go and slow our lives down a little bit and get back in touch with nature, you know, to get through these times. But yeah, it's going to be very intense from here on out. And, you know, that old saying, there's going to be wars and rumors of wars, you know, it's like World War III, they're not going to allow it. You know, there's going to be no nukes launched or anything else. Those are dinosaurs. You know, they
just do so much, you know, when you just think of all the nuclear facilities around the planet. We only need a couple more volcanoes to go, or you know, somebody to release an earthquake in the direction of another nuclear facility, and then we've got another Fukushima. Everything is so delicately balanced that it doesn't take much, because we know that earthquakes can be induced. We well know that, and maybe Fukushima was as a punishment for the Japanese not coming on board with whatever they weren't coming on board with at the time.
Yeah, it pretty much was. Yeah, it was a punishment, just like France.
Yes.
France is being punished right now because they've, you know, France has been pretty open about what's really going on, you know, behind the scenes and things like that, and they were supporting, you know, Iraq and other countries, and they weren't coming on board, and they're just saying this whole terrorism thing is a bad joke, and so you know, when there was a lot of movement in that direction to break away and to actually spill the beans on what's really happening, you know, because, you know, like Al Qaeda, we call it Al CIA, is what we call it, you know. Here, you know, these things are all created by our own infrastructures to keep the war industries going. But, you know, it's like, you know, they were being kind of vocal about that, and they supported Iraq, and they're actually saying, hey, we're going to help Iraq with their nuclear programs and things like that. And so, you know, it's like, of course, you know, it's a big slap in the face. So recently, I thought it was recently, is that they weren't going along with these terrorist summits. You know, there was a big terrorist summit right before this bombing happened, and they weren't going along with it. You know, they weren't going along with the program. And also, they were supporting Palestine as being recognized, you know, as a nation, and everything else. So obviously, you know, who are they going to target to get back in line? You know, to keep, you know, furthering this agenda. You know, and it's a one world order agenda to get everything centralized and you know, to get everybody to turn all their power away and their freedom away to a central government. You know.
Absolutely.
So, but I think people are figuring it out. You know, they aren't really buying it.
Well, interestingly, on that side of things, and I don't know whether this is true or not, but I will just say an inside source, and I can't say anything more than that at the moment, said that at this next summit forthcoming, the climate summit, there will be apparently ET present who are going to work on creating a situation where disclosure has to be given or announced or whatever. I can't imagine it. But, you know, that's not what was said. And anyway, we'll see. Who knows?
It's very... Yeah, I don't know when it's going to happen. It's very close. They've got all their ducks in a row, and they've done most of what they need to do to clean out these other pockets here. They're finishing that up, and I think it's a very short amount of time before, you know, they're just going to come and do their thing. And the real disclosure is coming from the skies. I mean, they're appearing everywhere. Fleets of ships are appearing over Mexico and California and things like that over here. So, you know, Florida as well. So it's happening around the world, and pretty soon that to deny this is going to be ridiculous. They had a bunch of UFO activity in Texas, and so they put a poll out on the local news there, said, okay, how many people believe UFOs exist and that we are being visited by off-world visitors? 99%.
Really?
Yeah.
In Texas?
In Texas.
In Texas, wow.
Yeah, grab that. I grabbed the screen. It shows the poll, you know, 99%, you know, so I mean, it's like, to me, it's like when you got 99% of the people, and at a time CNN poll was like up to 86%. I mean, the cover-up's over. Why do they even continue with it? It's like the polls are showing the people are just going, you guys are just making fools of yourself. You're lying. You're showing us we don't believe you anymore, and so why continue? You know, it's where's the honor in that? You know, where's the integrity to keep lying like this? And I think a lot of people on the inside are fed up with it too. They go, yes. I can't go out there and say this, you know, like, you know, I'm not going to go over and say these are weather balloons, you know, or whatever. You know, it's just like, forget it, you know. So
yeah,
that's what it's going.
I think we may see, I've got a sneaking suspicion, and I may be wrong, there may be something coming out of the military side as well. You know, that'll be a big deal if it is, but, you know, there's some things coming through my doorway that are some really interesting stuff that, you know, and when I can get to share that, then if any of that is remotely true, then wow. You know, a lot of the military just fed up, especially what happened with the SEAL teams and the things, you know, they were all just sacrificed to pull off this false Obama scam, you know, I mean, Osama bin Laden scam that they did. But, you know, there's a lot of extreme distrust in the military. And I think eventually the military is just going to say, you know what, enough's enough. We're going to go back to our, you know, our oath. You know, we promised to protect and, you know, the Constitution and serve the people, and this is an extreme disservice, and we're tired of being the brute squad for the corporations. You know, they're just done with it. Yeah, indeed. Well, I can't wait for things to just turn over a little bit. That'll be absolutely fantastic when it does. So let's just mention your books as well. I've been meaning to do that throughout, but I know we're only about 15 minutes left. It's gone so fast. Yeah. So tell us about your books, James.
Well, there's 3 books. I've got 2 in the hopper too that I'm working on that I haven't finished yet. But The first book is Reunion with Source, and the second book is Becoming Gods, and the third book is The Ultimate Soul Journey. And the first two books have some really powerful information on the multiverse and how to heal unseen negative influences, how to maintain your self-authority, as well as a lot of information about, who's who in the multiverse and, the real history of Earth and things like that. So a lot of people that read the books, they just said that there's two things that happen. One, they just say they can't put it down. And the other one is they're actually, when they start reading the book, they get taken out. They just leave their bodies. They start hooking up with this energy. They get really high, and the next thing you know, they're gone. But it's kind of funny. But they're bestsellers, and it's just word of mouth is how they've been selling.
Yeah.
I don't do any advertising or anything. So they're very, very simple, but very accurate and very easy to understand books that'll take you to have your own experience.
Okay, and I noticed that on I think it's a couple of the books. I'm just trying to remember that it says "as received by yourself." So
yeah.
By that, are you saying that that's channeled information, as we might? It's a difficult word to use, but information.
Yeah. It's inspired. It's like automatic writing, more like automatic writing, and with me, because of the near-death experiences. When I was with the Tibetan Foundation, some of their best channels were doing 70%. And so there's always 30% or so of our own cultural beliefs and religious beliefs or even some of our own wounds and traumas, kind of, bend things, in different directions. Sure. But
absolutely.
Yeah. But this is because of the death, the near-death experiences and the 30 years of intense, work, and learning every process-oriented therapy on the planet and studying with lamas and gurus and everything else, is that the information is very clean. It's very, very pure. And it's when I was with the Tibetan Foundation, I was doing like 95 to 98% because of the drowning that I had, that I went to the source and back again. But the information is very clear and it has a really high frequency to it. So when people read it, it creates a construct or a pathway for the energy to flow.
How wonderful. So which of your books would be good for someone to start with, James?
I'd go with Reunion with Source, okay, and then Becoming Gods for the next one. And then The Ultimate Soul Journey is more of an autobiography of all the different groups that I've dealt with and met, and beings and their messages. And it talks about the feline beings and all the different beings that I connected with out there in the multiverse, and kind of about how they're the way they operate, and it helps us to understand that there's a couple of really severe problems with our planet right now. One is this patriarchal program that we're running right now.
Absolutely.
To be functional, your subjectivity, your sensitive side or the feminine side should be plugged into spirit. And your male side or your objective side makes things happen. And we're operating from the ego, mainly in the patriarchal program. We're not even plugged into spirit. We're just operating from the ego and its programs, which are very, very low frequency, very low vibrational. And so we're backwards in that way. And also, too, other civilizations, they pick their leadership according to their spiritual adeptness and their track record of service to their civilization, whereas we pick our leaders as to how much money they've amassed, at the expense of humanity and the earth, and who they know and who they can pay off, basically. So we just have a very backwards way of doing things, and they're trying to bring this information in, saying this is how an advanced civilization works. They have their councils, they have they're the people that are the best, in there to serve the civilization. And they even take their kids, like the Palladians take their kids up on the ships, the beam ships. They turn them into light. I mean, the whole ship and the people become a light being, basically, and that's how their ships operate. So they have a near-death experience. They do it about the age of 8 or 9, and they know their sole purpose because they're very spiritually advanced and technologically advanced. So they know the kid's sole purpose, they take him up into unity consciousness, anchor him firmly in that, and then they bring him back and they give him all the tools, everything he needs to excel to his highest potential. And then he gives back to society because he knows everything is one. And if we really want to take a quantum leap in consciousness, that's what we need to do. And that's something we're trying to organize here at the ranch, you know, a template on this is how civilization should work.
Yeah, and unity consciousness. That's interesting. The person who was whose life was threatened, should they come on the show, is also talking about unity consciousness as the only way forward.
Yeah.
With love as the only, the only thing that we can move forward with that will be really effective. And he just cited that after many, many years of being taken and physically abused by these ETs, in some horrible ways, having had many experiences of different energetic interactions, from magic to, all kinds of things. He kind of went around the clock with the whole thing and came back to spirituality and moving on from there. Mm-hmm. He realized after his experience with the void that it was love. And then the next time they came for him and began about their work with him, he began praying for them, is the words he used, and sending them love and light and forgiving them and telling them that he loved them, and they didn't know what to do. They froze in their footsteps and they couldn't continue. They couldn't manage to do what they came to do. And it's great, isn't it? And he said also what was really interesting, that for years he had been trying to get his life on track because he'd had so many experiences of the paranormal, the abnormal, the ET, and everything. And he it was like a full immersion job of every kind of energy interaction you could have. And finally he's come full circle, and he was really asking for help on the path, and he wasn't getting it. It's like I was shouting to the wind there. And then he asking for help on his path, and then he said, then I asked for please help me on the path that you want me to be on, and the you being the creative source of all that is in this incarnation in him. And he said it was like an amazing download and experience, that suddenly it was like everything dissolved and he was connected. It was just because he had taken it away from the ego, the self. Even though he was doing it in a good way, he'd still got the orientation a bit skewed. But when he said, it's like on the path for service to others, and it connected. So that was really interesting.
We have the genes of gods, basically. We have the DNA of the gods, and that's why all these abductions are going on, because they want our DNA. A lot of it's not active, but when we activate that and we bring the full love and power and joy and bliss of source through us, we can bring that down through our crown into the heart and out into these situations. And love's the ultimate power in the universe. And when you can channel that energy into these situations, they go bonkers. They don't know what to do with it. They can't function. They fall apart, and there's a lot of protection in that as well, so, and you can hook up with the benevolent ETs and ask for protection, and bring these lion beings in when you're really up against it. They just clean house. I'd say they're ferociously protective.
Oh, and good.
Tell your friend to bring in these lion beings. There's one by the name of Bacall. Tell him to hook up with him and have him help him clear some energy out and see what happens. But you can't let them stop you. You got to go forward. We've had those guys. We've had guys show up with badges that weren't human, that tried to act like humans, and they had their eyebrows painted on, they had no facial hair or anything, and they had to paint eyebrows on and things like that. And they started getting really hot and sweating because we were bringing in the higher energy. And they started rubbing their foreheads, and their eyebrows went up and up. And then they looked at each other and go, "Oh God, we're busted." And then they just disappeared. They walked out the door and vanished. So it's like, but you got to laugh at this stuff. It is funny, and don't give them any power.
I mean, that is absolutely wonderful. And James, I know you're doing some talks recently in the last 5 minutes. Just tell us where you're doing a speaking tour. You're going to other countries. Tell us where you're going.
Yeah, we'll have all that up pretty soon, and sign up for the newsletter, and we'll give people information. But I'll be going to Japan, and then I have a short stop in China. I'm going to be meeting with some very high awakened people there, you might say, and then I'm going to go to Australia. And I have quite a venue there in Australia, which is amazing because almost everything is sold out. It's just like in Australia, and I just agreed to it, just like a couple weeks ago to come to Australia. So there's quite a gathering there. So it's going to be a fun trip. And then I'm going to come back to Hawaii and then Mexico, probably do a short thing in Mexico. So, but after that, I'm probably just going to park myself here because I want to really anchor my energy here in the ranch here and get things going here, get this center going, off the ground.
Yeah, that is absolutely fantastic, and I have to say, it's really exciting having you on, and I really love it. And maybe we can hook up another time for a catch up, James, when you have maybe after your tour at sometime next year, maybe mid next year, and hear how the energy stuff is going on, and have a little report back then. And and just give out your website again, please. I have put it in. There is a podcast, and it will be up there, folks, for anybody who wants to look at that.
Yeah, you can go to eceti.org. It's eceti.org. Or you can go to private invitation at eceti.org to get more information, and that'll give you a list of all the things that we have going on here at the ranch. Okay. Well, I want to thank everybody. James, thank you so much for being on with us. I really appreciate your time. And I have to thank Stephen Roberts for being there again. You are a star. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And to everybody who's been listening, thank you. I hope you found it instructive and interesting. And I know we're going to be playing out shortly with the outro. So this is until next week, folks. I'm going to say, James. I can't quite manage that one. I'm practicing. Nearly. So take care. Yeah, and I hope the weather improves for all of us, hey? So, all right. God bless, and may the force be with you, everybody. Right. Stephen, thank you so much. PIR, God bless. Thank you, Vin. Thank you, everybody. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you all next week. Thanks, James. God bless. Ammach Files. Hello, everyone, and welcome to show 57 of the Ammach Files. Now, I do have to tell you, it's probably the same way you are, but we've had days of rain and really heavy winds. It's horrible. I don't look in the upstairs room to see if there's another wet patch from the ceiling. So anyway, we are the Ammach Files. We are on People's Internet Radio, and it is a tad after 11, so about 6 minutes past. So welcome to, and it is Tuesday, and it is the 17th of November, 2015. Now, before I go on to who's on the show this evening, and I'm really excited to share that with you in a moment, I just want to flag up something that happened this week. Now, I had a guest that was due to appear on the December the 1st slot, Tuesday. And then on the 13th, which we know was the day of the Paris event, which I'm going to say has all the hallmarks of another false flag. Not that I'm going to go into that just now, but I had a call with this guest, our guest-to-be. And I'm just going to read what it was, that the notes I took that they said. So on that day, they reported that they were leaving their home. They're about halfway to where they normally go, whatever that journey was from their home. And this is in the East Midlands of the UK. When suddenly he was approached by two strangers.
And it took him a bit by surprise because they suddenly approached him talking about the broadcast. The broadcast to come. My name was mentioned and so was Ammach. And they then intimated and certainly insinuated that it would be better for his health if he didn't do the show. Now, I know that also my guest has also experienced and probably still has ongoing experiences of surveillance, harassment, and all the rest of it. Now, it's not that we want to get stuck on all of that, but we have to acknowledge what goes on and how difficult this field can be for those of us trying to punch a hole through the envelope. And, you know, this is quite serious. So my guest then said, whilst he has family, grown family, he didn't feel that he could really and honestly come on the show. So, you know, this is really quite serious. And he was really taken aback. He was really quite shocked. And then when I asked him if they were human, if he thought they were human, he said, oh, yes, yes. And then he said, but he said, maybe not. He said, actually, when I think about it, he said, as I watched them go, because this interaction also took all of about 30 seconds, so he didn't get a chance to quiz them back or ask any details. They were just gave what they had to deliver, which was spoken by one of them, and then they left. And he said, as they left, they did have quite a strange gait. So it is not the first time that I've heard of people who are beings who have taken on the human form or casing for a time to deliver a message who aren't quite used to its maneuvers or mechanics, and that causes a very strange gait. So it seems that they probably were not human. And when I told a friend of mine who is ex-security forces, etc., he was quite concerned and said, if this was done by humans, I would tell you to desist and stop instantly. But as it was non-humans, I'm really not so worried. So that's interesting. So if all continues on the 1st of December...
You know, on the family records and everything, and then found out my grandmother and great-grandmother were Cherokee, you know, so that's kind of interesting. But we're kind of we're the Cherokee Scotch-Irish mix, you know, so we're that mix that all the alphabet agencies are looking for, you know, because we're supposed to have gifts.
Yeah, you tick all the boxes, James.
Yeah.
I won't bother sending out the survey then, we all know already.
Yeah, I just hit all the boxes.
Yeah, absolutely. So, James, so you've had a few near-death experiences. I know they've had a profound impact. Of course, any near-death experience would. You know, of course, that goes without saying.
Yeah.
But, so, well, let's go on to any others that you think have had an impact where there have been any others involved, if there are any, indeed.
Well, yeah, I had, well, we had quite a few just flyovers constantly, you know, they were flying over the ranch here. And at one time I got so bored with it, I said, come on, you guys, like, what's this about? I need to know. And, you know, at one point in time I go, you know, I don't even care if it kills me. I want to know why are you, you know, what is my connection is? Why do you keep flying over the ranch here? And I didn't fully understand, you know, what it was about at the time. And then so they, so the next thing you know, I was actually in the bathtub and I was meditating and I was talking to him telepathically, and this beam of light came right through the wall and hit me in the chest. Wow. And then 3 gold balls came down the beam, one after another, and hit me in the chest. And the next thing you know, I was pulled right out of my body and I was on a ship. But that ship was it was a 6-dimensional ship. It was a plasma ship. It was just pure energy. And that was one of the more intense experiences. And I ran into a woman by the name of Malia, who was with the Orion Council of Light, their initiators. And I asked her what the gold balls were, and she said that your memories have been restored. And, you know, and she said that it was part of the initiation. And then I asked her, you know, why she had a headdress on. It looked like a bathing cap with gold bars over the top. I asked her what the headdress was about, and she said it was a spiritual form of technology they used to initiate people. And then I started asking her some more questions, but she told me I had to leave because she said if I stayed, it would change my frequency too much, and it would be harder to adapt to readjust to Earth, you know. So she told me I need to go back, and she said everything you need you have everything you need. Your memories have been restored, and so after that, I just had these like snippets of one life after another, and I was viewing them, it would just be a short snippet, but I get the whole emotional charge out of it and the memory of who I was in that lifetime, and what I was doing, and some of those included off-world lives as well, and I would just be viewing myself and what I was doing in that lifetime.
And did you see the link of all the experiences to this life? The common thread that's led you to where you are now, and if that I find that absolutely fascinating, because I've had some memory of my own past lives, and you see the link, you see the growing tether, and the build of information bringing you to where you are now. And I wonder if you did.
Yeah, I did. What was interesting, I've done everything. Like I was a Viking warrior and I hacked off heads, and when breaking up, I could hear kind of what you're saying. I'll kind of intuitively go by what I think you asked. But I guess the childhood events.
Oh.
Talk about the childhood experiences first.
Yeah. Yeah,
All right.
I think so. I always find it interesting to start from the get-go, and your time on this planet and how that panned out.
Great. Well, I had a lot of experiences as a child. I had, at the age of 5, I had bronchopneumonia, and I was actually in the hospital, and they kept telling my parents that they didn't think I'd make it through the night.
Oh, wow.
Several times. And I had a being appeared to me, and she was all dressed in blue, and she used to stroke my forehead and talk to me and kind of pull me through it. And it happened several times. And then the last time, she actually gave me a substance to eat. It was like the consistency of ice cream, but it wasn't cold. It was like a white, creamy kind of. And I ate that, and then I got well almost immediately, and then I didn't miss a day of school after that. And so that was my first kind of paranormal experience, I'd have to say. I mean, I had some other things happen, but that was a really one of the big events.
Yeah, that was a enormous. Did she share anything of herself or who she was, or was it somebody that you perhaps felt you might have recognized from dreams, or was this a brand new person for you?
At 5 years old, I had no idea who she was, but I just felt this pure love and joy and nurturing energy from her, and she was always wearing blue, and I kept asking for the woman in blue, when she was going to come back. And they told me basically you're delusional or whatever. They all wore green. They wore green. The nurses all wore green, and I was like in intensive care and everything, and there wasn't anybody, supposedly there dressed in blue. And so I found out later on, and in a little disclaimer there, I'm not Catholic, but it turned out to be Mary. It turned out to be Mother Mary.
Oh, really?
And, yeah, and she's a universal being. She's not here just for the church, she's here for anybody, but she's very involved in the children and kind of keeping things going. And then as a child, I remember being taken from my room. We lived in the high desert where there was a lot of activity. And I remember being taken up several times, and I was okay with it. At first, it kind of freaked me out, and I tried to talk to my parents about it, and they just wouldn't hear it. It was a bad dream. Just forget about it.
Oh, so what sort of age would you have been there, James? Then on that one, sorry, did I miss that?
Yeah, I was about probably between 7 and 9.
Okay.
When that happened. But it wasn't negative. I just was trying to understand it. It was more of a positive experience. And then later I found out there was a lot of kind of genetic tampering, with my family and things like that. And so our whole family is very different. We all have gifts, and we're all, especially my nieces and nephews, are just brilliant and, geniuses, and they're working on the genome experiments and things like that. And they're already MDs and naturopaths and and things like that. So it's just there's been a lot of upgrading, you might say, within our family line.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's so common that you hear about it, isn't it? The intergenerational side of things. So when your mum and dad didn't kind of go with what you were experiencing or support you in that, did did they later on have experiences of their own that helped them with that, or was that never part of their experience?
Well, my dad lived in New Mexico, and so he was involved with that whole Roswell thing. And
really?
yeah, he was a dentist. He wasn't even 21 years old, and he already, was a dentist. He'd already graduated dental school and everything else. But my grandmother was very involved in that, and my grandfather owned the hardware store, and he sold a lot of the materials to the, I think it's Frazzle.
Frazzle.
Frazzle. Yeah. And I think it's a Swenson Ranch or something like that. But the first responders, the sheriffs, came to my grandmother and started talking to her about it. And she was like the matriarch. She was the school teacher, of the town there. And she was talking to them, and she said, she said, these were good old boys, honest as this day is long. She said, salt of the earth. And she said they couldn't even hold a coffee cup. They were still shaken, and they were still white from the experience. And it just turned them upside down. She said, I believed them, and her name was Elizabeth, and they said, Elizabeth, we're not alone, Yeah. And they said they are told they could not talk about it. They said, all we can tell you is we're not alone, and there was an incident, but they said we can't really talk about it. And then they did. They told her some things, but they just said, she said there was an incident basically, but they didn't say too much. I don't know what scared them worse, seeing the ETs and little bodies, or the guys that showed up later and put the wrath of God into them, if they were to talk.
Yeah, that's quite well documented, of course, these days. Yeah. But I mean, that would have been extremely scary to go through, because I mean, there was just nothing really like that, and no experience of people having the heavy hand of the military, threatening them with disappearing in the desert should they speak about such a thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's still going.
I mean, they did do that. They dealt with it very heavy-handedly. But
yeah.
My dad's always been really open-minded. He was like a walking Buddha, the way he lived his life and everything. And he every once in a while he would stop, pull over, and he'd tell us to get out of the car, and we'd get out of the car, and he'd say, look up, and there'd be like 3 or 4 ships flying, right over the car, and we're just little kids at the time. And he said, do you see that? What do you see? And I go, stars. And he goes, it's daytime and they're moving. He'd like explain it to us. We're just like, little kids at the time.
Yeah, and so did you think that was fun? Did he tell you? Did he have much experience about, or any interaction? Who was flying them, or?
No, he didn't talk much about it. He kind of just. At the time he was a dentist, and he was very well respected, and he had like #1 membership at the golf course, and he was like a scratch golfer too, a very good golfer. But he just didn't, want to mess up his position, you might say, in society there.
Absolutely, we all know about that scenario too well, and it's quite understandable. I don't hold anything against anybody having, to stay the course in that regard. It's a tough one. It's a tough road.
Well, it's like my grandmother. My grandmother was Cherokee, and so my mom didn't want to talk about that at all. So we didn't even know that for quite a long time until we started looking at the pictures.
But I will be broadcasting what I can of his story. It's never the same when it's reported, but I will do that unless I am stopped doing that. Anyway, I don't want to stay on that point for too long, but it's just to again flag up for those who don't think this area or field is important at all, just how important it is to the powers that be, or whatever you want to call these folks, who have a vested interest in the bulk of humanity not waking up and realizing their own divine sovereignty and potential. So, folks, onward and upward. Now, we're going to play a song. It's the UFO song, and I forgot to do my homework and look up the year. So we're going to play that for you, and then I'm going to bring on my very special guest, and that is James Gleeland, and you may have heard of him and his ranch, the ET Ranch, and we'll talk about that after the song. So here we go. It's the UFO song on a very wet and windy southeast of England. See you after then. Okay, sorry about that, everyone. Whether it's what I was telling you about or whether it is in fact because of the weather, we won't know. So let me introduce you to James and give you a little bio. So James Gilliland, for those of you who do not know who he is a best-selling author. He's an internationally known lecturer, minister, counselor, and multiple near-death experiencer and contactee. He's a facilitator of many Eastern disciplines, a visionary dedicated to the awakening and healing of humanity, and the Earth, who teaches higher dimensional realities from experience. He is recognized worldwide as the founder of the Gilliland Estate, commonly known as the ET Ranch, and that stands for Enlightened Contact with Extraterrestrial Intelligence, where he documents and shares amazing multidimensional contact phenomenon, and that can all be viewed on the website www.eseti.org. His unique focus on dispelling the myths propagated by the disinformation system makes him an in-demand speaker at events such as international UFO congresses, knowledge conferences, and contact in the desert. Now, I do know that James is also off around the world to do a huge, now he's got several books. Reunion with Source journey. So we will have a talk about all of those in due course. So first of all, welcome to the Ammach Files, James.
Oh, thank you for having me on the show.
We're losing her already.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put that song back on again, James, and let's see about, try this again.
I can monologue it if you need to.
No, we'll just be a minute or so, I think.
Oh dear, I'm sorry, folks. I'm not going to be how it's going to be for the entire time. But anyways, well, beginning with about your early life and some of those NDE experiences, and I think that would be a perfect place to start. So tell us about the early days of, perhaps before we start that, let's hear about that childhood event or those events.
All right.
We lost James again?
Yeah, no, you're